Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to take a look at Winsor & Newton's Designer Gouache. I have the 6-color tube set here, and I picked this up on, I think I got this on Amazon, either that or Blick, I'm pretty sure Amazon, for about, I think I paid between $30 and $34 for it, and this is a 6-tube set. The package came a little shop worn, but that doesn't really matter to me because I'm in it for the paints. And inside the box, we have 6 tubes of gouache, and we also have a little brochure. So let's look at the colors that we have first, and I'm going to put some fresh gouache out on this palette while we're at it because I want to do some testing with it. I have done a couple paintings with this already, but I haven't done swatching or anything like that. When I first squeezed out the paint from my to work with it, I did have some binder separation. Oh, so we have primary yellow, and that is made with PY74 and PY138. I'm seeing if the lightfastness, the permanence as a permanence rating of A, and we'll get into the lightfast ratings in a moment. And it says series 1, which would mean the series would be how expensive it is, how rare are the pigments, and how expensive the paint is. I'm only going to put a little dab of that green out, and oh, there's a little binder separation there. You can kind of see it kind of like dripping. I don't know if you can see that. It's just kind of like got the gum arabic separated there. I think this might have been some old stock, and I think that might be why I'm having some separation. I don't know. I mean, it's the same price at Blick, so, you know, it's not like it was cheaper. Although the price on this was, I've seen it fluctuate from $30 to $34, so that's about what you're going to pay. I think I would probably recommend getting at Blick. I'll link both below, but just because they'll probably have fresher paint if that's important to you. Oh, we have, let's see, permanent green middle. That is PY3 and PY74 and PG7. So it's a 3-color mix. It's got a lightfastness rating of 2, which would be good, and a permanence rating of A, which would be good. So double A is their top of the line. A is good, and then B is like moderate. And then beyond that is fugitive. This one is primary blue. The color is PB15, lightfastness of 1, and permanence of A. And lightfastness of A. But with ASTM, I think they do their own testing, but they also have them tested by ASTM. There's a little bit of binder separation there, which is kind of, yeah, you can even see it in the cap. There's just a clear liquid in there. Which I'm kind of bummed to see, honestly, with Winsor & Newton paint. And then here we have Zinc White. Zinc White is made of PW5, and it is a mixing white. It's not as opaque as titanium white. And I'm going to actually wipe off. I thought I wiped this out, but it looks like I have a little bit of grime in there. There was binder separation when I first got this, and I did find, I don't know if I'm using more of this than I do titanium white, but it does seem like I needed to replenish this more often on my palette. And then we have Ivory Black, which is, well, you can see a little binder there on the tube. This is PBK9, lightfastness of 1, and they have permanence AA, which is their most permanent. This one's permanent A. Oh my word, we're going to have to look at the chart because I'm not used to squeezing out paint, and there's a little binder separation on this. You know, what's funny is that I bought this during Black Friday. I finally got a chance to use them last week, and I've done a couple paintings. I had more binder separation today, I think, than when I first opened it, so maybe these need a good stir. I don't know, so that's kind of a bummer. But let's look at our little brochure here. Kind of like the Holbein brochure, which I really appreciated with the Holbein like basic mixing set of 5. It has information about basic color theory, primary colors, secondary colors, tertiary colors, CMYK color mixing, which would be like cyan, magenta, yellow, black color mixing. But this has a primary red, primary yellow, primary blue. And then there's like a little bit of a diagram there to show you how you might want to mix your colors. And yeah, just some basic information on color theory in several languages. And then here we have our color chart, and this would be handy to hang on to because It has each of the color. Now, it doesn't have pigment information on the color chart, unfortunately, but it does tell you each color, what its color number is as far as like the Winsor Newton line. If you were to order it online or whatever, you know what number you want to have. I don't know how useful that is, but if you don't remember the name, if it's easier for you just to write the number down on a swatch or however you like to organize your stuff, they have that there. So it'll tell you on this chart whether a color is transparent, semi-transparent, semi-opaque, or opaque by the little squares there. It will tell you what the lightfast rating is. So the Winsor Newton lightfast rating goes AA is extremely permanent, A is permanent, B is moderately durable, C is fugitive, and then S is just your series number, and that corresponds with how rare the pigments are and how expensive the paint is. And then ASTM has their own light fastness rating. Number 1 is excellent. Number 2 is very good. And then 3, 4, and 5 have a lower light fastness rating and are just provided in the series because the colors are brilliant and people want them. So it's interesting to note, I think it's important to note that these are designer colors, and these are formulated for graphic designers, and they're made to be matte, vibrant, easily mixable, and made for reproduction and not necessarily made for longevity. And there is a smattering of all different kinds. So if you want to purchase paint that you want to hang on the wall, you're probably better off to finding the color chart and then going through and just choosing the colors that meet your light fastness criteria. I wanted to try the mixing set because it's a more economical way to buy the paints, and I was curious as how it handled. And both of the paintings I did today, I did in sketchbook, so I'm not too worried about it. These are all, well, this one right here, the primary red is, they're considering it moderately durable, but the other ones have a good or very good permanence rating. So so there's that. This was designed for mixing to get your clear colors. Let's talk about the color selection as we swatch these out. Anyway, so all of that information is here in the chart. I'm going to hang on to this. I'm sure it's on their website, but it's just interesting. And you can also, if you're someone who only wants opaque colors, you could choose just opaque colors. You could choose just light fast colors. You know, you have that information so you can make the choice that's right for you, because nobody needs 84 tubes of paint, 84 tubes of color, right? 84 different colors. So there's options, you know, you can choose a couple reds, a couple yellows, a couple blues, whatever meets your needs. All right, and now we're going to swatch these out. These are 14 ml tubes, so pretty good sized tubes. They're 1 ml smaller than, say, the standard 15 ml tube, but they look about the same. And I think a couple of their colors, like their whites and maybe their blacks, come in the 37 ml tubes like Da Vinci. So if that's something that's interesting to you, then you can do that. And I will show you finished artwork in this video as well. I'm just trying to stick to the same order that I usually do things in, just for consistency's sake. All right, so I'm just going to use a flat brush here. This is, I usually use these Royal & Langnickel Zen all media brushes for acrylic and gouache. I find they are just super resilient. The coating is starting to chip off the handle. I've been using these almost daily for about 5 years, and they're just starting to see a little wear and tear on the coating, on the words and the coating and stuff. So I highly recommend these. All right, let's start swatching. Now I'm probably gonna have to add a little bit of water to this, but I'll try fresh from the tube and see. I think that's a little too. That's gonna be too thick. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's too thick. So just a little bit of water. So what I'm looking for here is I'm looking to see how opaque it is without diluting it too much with water. I'm looking to see just how it feels. I just tried to do a little bit more of a thicker pass. Zinc White is not meant to be opaque, but it is pretty opaque. It's not bad. Next, we're going to do a primary yellow. And while I'm at it, I'm going to put a couple little dabs of that out on the palette just for mixing sake. And that is quite transparent. I wonder what they rated that as. Let's see. Primary yellow, they called semi-opaque. And I realized that opaque in gouache terms is quite a bit different to what we would see as opaque for watercolor terms. I don't know if I'm getting that down there any more thicker. It's a pretty transparent color. I don't want to waste it though, because I'll want it for some mixing. I didn't want to squeeze out too much, but I did want to get paint fresh from the tube for this swatch. Blot off the extra. So Da Vinci had quite transparent gouache, the colors that I purchased. And they do have a mixing set, but I didn't know about that when I bought my my tubes of paint from them. But the thing that really troubled me about their mixing set, I mean, not their mixing set, their gouache, some of their transparent colors were very shiny, and that's what I didn't really like. Yeah, that's super transparent. Look at that. Let's see, what do they call the primary red, which is also moderately permanent, so it's probably more fugitive. Primary red, I'm looking for it. Where'd it go? Semi-opaque, they're saying. I would call that transparent, personally. But maybe that's my watercolor bias. I don't know. Now let's look at the blue. Blot off from a brush. Take the excess water off so I just have enough to make it flow. That is a little bit more opaque, but still quite transparent, honestly. But to be fair, mixing colors tend to be more transparent because the more opaque your color, the more muddy your mixes would be in general. I wish that there was a brown instead of that green, or yellow ochre instead of that green, because that is not a color I hardly ever use. It's just such a fake looking green to me. You definitely have to temper it down with other things. You get kind of a purpley color when you mix it with the red, which is kind of interesting. This is not a color I would have purchased on like open stock. But I did mix it with stuff just so it doesn't go to waste, and so I didn't use up as much of the other colors. Yep. And it's a 3-color mix. That's the other thing. It's a green. They put a green in this mixing set, and it's a 3-color mix. I would rather have them left out the green entirely and made the paint set cheaper, or given us like a burnt umber or Van Dyke brown or burnt sienna or something. Look at me telling Winsor and Newton how to do their job. That one looks really opaque, but it could just be that it's dark in value. I think I put that down pretty thick anyway, so. All right, let's see what it says about the primary blue. I don't think we looked up the primary blue. That says it's opaque, which it is more opaque, that's for sure. The permanent green middle, they're calling that opaque, which, I don't know, it's more opaque, I suppose. And the Ivory Black they're calling opaque, which I would agree with. And the Zinc White, they're calling the Zinc White opaque, but I guess comparatively it is, but it's not as opaque as titanium white would be. So let's do some color mixing. I drew this out like it was a split primary palette, which is kind of silly because that's not what we have here. But I am going to start with my favorite color, red. I know there's some dried chunks on there from earlier, so I'm just going to try to use that up since we've done our mass tone swatches. And I'll put the red here. We're just going to see how cleanly they mix here. It doesn't really matter how thickly I have it down. And I'll put some of that on the palette for mixing with one of the other colors. This palette is by Franord Designs on Etsy. F-R-A-N-O-R-D. If you're looking for a palette like this, let's do our yellow. They're very transparent colors, but mixing the Zinc White in, and I never really used Zinc White before in gouache, and I think I like it, and I think I might want to pick up or try using some of that Zinc White with my M-gram watercolor gouache maybe. Not M-gram, I'm sorry, my Da Vinci gouache. Okay, and then we'll do our blue. Okay, now let's mix the blue with the yellow. Oh, that's a beautiful green. I really don't know why they added that green in there, because honestly, brown's a harder color to mix accurately, consistently than green is. Green is so easy. I don't know why they put that in there, unless it's just a color people want convenience-wise. And now we are going to do the red and yellow. Might need to get a little bit more yellow in there. I'm just going to pick it up there because I'm going to clean this palette afterwards anyway. Beautiful, beautiful orange. And then we'll see the violet that we get. I'm going to swirl up what I can out of that red. And a beautiful violet. Now I did find these paints to reactivate fine, dried on the palette. They mix colors beautifully. And then making browns, I didn't find it too difficult to make browns, and you'll see in my final artwork, but you know, you can just mix your colors together. I got this violet. I'm going to mix it with yellow. I can get a brown that way. And mix in some green, get a brown that way. You know, I can take a little green and the red, and that's going to give me kind of like a grayish violet brown. And of course you can add black to any of those colors to get a little bit darker of a tone and desaturate it further if you're getting it too vibrant. So it is, you know, it's not difficult to make the different grays and browns. And of course you have black and white if you want to do that. So I think it's definitely a serviceable set of paint. And I think the price is pretty good for 6 tubes. There is a set of 10. The set of 10 does contain a yellow ochre. In addition to these colors in the set of 10, there's a yellow ochre, a spectrum red, and a yellow deep. And I think, I'm trying to think what are the other, it's a yellow ochre, spectrum red, yellow deep, and ultramarine. Those are the additional 4 colors in the 10 tube set. The ultramarine would be nice. I use that a lot anyway, but I definitely would have preferred a brown. So I think if I was to get more, I would just pick up a couple browns, but I have other gouaches. I'll just mix them with the other gouaches. Generally, I try to, and this is personal preference, I go for a gouache that's a little bit more opaque. The Holbein mixing set of 5 is more opaque, but still mixes really well. I still think that is my, I would choose that one over this. But now the prices of the Holbein one have gone up higher, so you actually get like an extra tube with this. So really, it's just up to you and your preference. But these were very easy to mix. So points there for the mixability. And now I want to show you some artwork that I made with them. I just did this one today, and this is on the Tone Tan Mixed Media paper by Stillman and Byrne. It's the Nova series. I'm not sure what I think about this sketchbook, honestly. I like the Tone Tan paper by Strathmore. This isn't much thicker than their drawing paper, and it's half as thick as their mixed media paper. So I prefer the mixed media paper from Strathmore personally, but I was curious, so I bought this sketchbook to try. But I did like the painting I did on it. I think that turned out well. That was from a photo I took the other day when I was walking in the woods with a dog, and I always think it's interesting when I find like abandoned cars. It's like a car graveyard. I don't know. I always find that's kind of interesting. I'll have a video for that. Actually, it's already up. I'm sure it'll already be up on my channel because this review is coming out a little bit later. I think. I don't know. And then the other gouache painting I did with these is this one right here. So I used very bright colors to make very desaturated landscapes that are from, you know, April and Maine, it's very desaturated here. And I was able to mix all the colors I needed. It did take me longer, this painting especially, because of the amount of browns that I had to mix. It took me a lot longer than it would have if I had a brown. I think this probably added about a half an hour to this painting, just the brown, honestly. But I found that the paint went pretty far. I didn't feel like I had to keep putting out color. In fact, I just put like maybe probably a pea-sized dollop of each color on my palette before this one, and then when I went to do that one, I just had to replenish the red, yellow, and white. And yeah, I had enough from the previous painting to keep going. So I think, you know, I think it goes pretty well. It goes pretty long. I wouldn't necessarily pan these. I I don't think they reactivate fine, but I think that the best use of these is fresh from the tube. I did have some left over in my palette, and one of the little chunks fell out. I was able to put it back on the palette and re-wet it, because I stored my palette on its side in an eyeshadow palette organizer. But it worked. It worked fine. You know what? I'm going to put out more than one dollop of white for that first painting. I think I did put another dollop out, because I'm looking here and I see that I did put a little bit more white out on this one for this painting. But that's Zinc White. Zinc White is not going to affect your colors as much as Titanium White. It's not as overpowering. And the other thing about Zinc White that I do like, and this is kind of surprising because I hadn't used Zinc White gouache before, I like that the Zinc White is less cool, whereas Titanium White is more opaque, but it's also a colder white, and it really is stark. Because I like to use watercolor paper, and I also like to use toned paper, and that Titanium White is very bluish undertoned, and it almost, I wouldn't say clashes with the natural white of the watercolor paper I like to use, but it definitely is much lighter than the natural toned watercolor paper I use. I do have some bright white watercolor. I don't know, I tend to gravitate more to the warmer undertones. So I'm definitely I will rebuy the Zinc White when I use that up, because I think that's kind of a nice white to have, especially for mixing. It doesn't overpower, and I think that would be extremely useful with my Da Vinci gouache. And maybe I'll buy Zinc White and Da Vinci just to see how theirs is, because that's such a value. But I approve of these paints. I think that, honestly, I think with any sort of paint, if you're in the if you're buying from the professional range of any like legacy brand, I think you're gonna get probably a pretty consistent, pretty decent product. So I would say go with whatever is the most accessible and cost effective in your area. I think so far out of all the gouache that I've tried, Holbein and Daniel Smith have been my favorite. But also that's personal preference. I would say for drying gouache down, Daniel Smith dries down better and rewets better than other gouaches. It seems to it doesn't seem to shrink up that much. I've used M. Graham, but my M. Graham gouache is quite a bit older, and it did shrink up a bit. So I don't know. They have honey in there, so they're probably one of the top ones to pan. But the more and more I'm using it, the more I like to have it on a palette and just kind of maybe top it up a little bit as I use it, rather than going completely dry with it. But yeah, I think it's a good paint, and as long as you're aware that some colors are fugitive, and a lot of the colors are a little bit more transparent than you might expect, I think it's definitely one to recommend. You can let me know your experience in the comments below if you've used this gouache before and you have something different to say. Oh, there is one thing I want to add. This is the designer's gouache. Winsor & Newton has recently come out with another gouache just called Gouache, and I don't know anything about that paint. It looks cheap, and I think it is just a white labeled Chinese paint. I noticed that Winsor & Newton has been doing that a lot with products. Their pastels, their colored pencils, they're all like, they're manufactured not in England or France where their professional stuff has been made. I'm not sure exactly where each one is being made, but I think Vietnam or China for the pencils. And I think their new gouache they've come out with is being made in China, but I can't say 100%. I would stick with the designers until you see a good review of that other product, because I don't like what they're doing to their brand personally. Not that I'm in charge, it's none of my business. I don't run the world, and I certainly don't work for Winsor & Newton, but I would just be careful trying out new lines of products from them. But if you stick with the tried and true, I don't see any problem with Winsor & Newton products, and the gouache is fine. The binder separation is kind of a bummer because they were brand new. I just bought them a couple months ago, and I wouldn't expect to have binder separation on such a new product. I've had paints that have sat on my shelf for months and for years that don't have binder separation. So it's just you know, it's something. And the only other I'm trying to think if I had any binder separation with Da Vinci. I don't think I did, but the Paul Rubens opaque watercolor, I had some binder separation with a couple colors. But generally with new fresh paint, you don't have binder separation, in my experience anyway. Maybe I just get lucky, I don't know. So, and maybe it's because I bought it from Amazon and, you know, the box is a little shabby, so maybe it kicked around the warehouse for a long time, or maybe it was, you know, from a third-party seller and they had a shop and they were just kind of like, I need to get rid of this. This is getting all shabby. I don't know. I don't really care about the condition of the box. I care about the condition of the paint. And I can stir it up. It's not a huge deal, but something to think about when you're paying full price for something. Anyway, that is my thought. Those are my thoughts about the Winsor Newton Designer Gouache. I think that they're quite nice. They, for the most part, dried to a nice matte finish. That green, I would avoid the green. The green has a little bit of a shine to it. Everything else is fairly matte. The blue looks like it might have a little bit of shine to it, but it's nothing like the Da Vinci ones. And I'm not seeing any shine whatsoever on my paints. I did mix the blue down quite a bit with other colors to get the sky and to get that truck and whatnot. So final product's fine. Final product on my Da Vinci paintings were fine. Well, actually, no, they weren't. Some were kind of glossy. So I have no qualms with this. Give it a try. This is a good set to try if you want to try it on a budget. You're going to pay about $5 a tube this way. I don't know what they're going for per tube open stock at like Blick, but I think they're more. But I wouldn't, if you're buying open stock, I would avoid permanent green middle. I don't like that color. But I don't know, maybe that's just personal preference. I don't think it's really helpful or necessary when you can mix such a beautiful green. And you can always add more blue to it. And you can add a little bit of red to it if you want to desaturate it. I mean, why? Burnt umber would have been so much more useful in the set, in my opinion. But anyway, there you have it. And burnt umber is a cheap color to make. But anyway, getting off my soapbox, I hope you enjoyed this review. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or you want to share your experiences, leave them in the comments. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye.